Hi everyone, happy Friday. Just wanted to record another quick CEO update. Number one, wanted to focus on the language that's showing up, and number two, wanted to share some data. Language. We're seeing a lot of CEOs, a lot of VP of sales talk about the shape of the recovery. This is good. Their mindset is on recovery. And you might hear groups talk about a V-shaped recovery. So we had a decline, and are we going to improve at a similar rate? And when they think about those graphs, they think about productivity, GDP, hiring, all these things. We see a lot speculating. Is this going to be a V-shaped or is this going to be a slower U-shaped recovery? We even see some people asking, is this going to be L-shaped? There was a drop, and is this the new normal? Regardless of the letter that's being used, everyone is talking about recovery. When we think about the shape, that's why I want to get to point number two, the data, because there's some very optimistic signs that we should consider. So number one, HubSpot shared some fascinating data. The link to the article is in the email or in the description below this video. And they talked about the productivity of sales teams using their CRM. Two big indicators are the number of new opportunities created and the number of opportunities closed. That gives you an idea of how a sales team is performing. So when they benchmarked it, so they aligned everything on their pre-COVID numbers, one of the things they saw was that deal creation and deal closing rates dropped precipitously. Now they bottomed out at the end of March, and they bottomed out at about 35% their pre-COVID numbers, which means teams were much, much less productive. And that's why we saw so many layoffs and terminations. However, since the end of March, we have seen a steady linear recovery, and we are very, very close now to being back at the pre-COVID numbers. That means sales teams are being as productive as they were before COVID, which is a great sign for hiring. So when we take a look at that hiring marketplace, the data from the Bridge Group is really interesting. Again, the link is in the email and the descriptions if you want the whole report. Two things stood out. Number one were the actual layoffs and terminations. We saw in March a lot of sales teams, again, end of March, their numbers are really low. They all woke up and said, holy crap, we've got to change things. And they had a ton of layoffs. Those layoffs mostly happened through April. But what's really interesting is that it has plateaued. We are no longer seeing additional layoffs. In fact, we're starting to see more jobs being posted. So again, those layoffs, they plateaued at about 41% of companies had layoffs. Now they're hiring again. Now, the way we look at that is the data from Glassdoor, Indeed, and the number of job postings they have open. So again, if we start at 100%, meaning the jobs that were open in January, February, pre-COVID, immediately as we hit COVID, it bottomed out again, kind of getting into mid-April. We saw about 75% of the SDR jobs disappear. So companies had hiring freezes, closed those job postings. That's 3/4 of the opportunities just gone. We saw similar numbers for AEs. About 60% of the AE job postings just disappeared. Now, at a glance, that can sound really terrifying, but what we are seeing is a V-shaped recovery. It's not quite caught up with the sales productivity numbers, but we're seeing those AE roles back up now to about almost 75% of the jobs that were originally posted in January, February are open again. So we're still down a bit, but not terribly. The SDR roles haven't quite recovered as much. We're just north of 50, but that means companies are actively hiring. So big takeaway, the recovery is looking more V-shaped as it impacts sales roles. The roles are starting to open back up, and we're seeing some of that success in our peers and in the cohort. But most importantly, now it's time to think about how to differentiate yourself. So that's why the last thing I'd like to talk about is ways to differentiate yourselves. When you're a candidate and you're talking to a company about a role, you want to think about the unique advantage you have. We've equipped you with a lot of skills, video sales, interviewing, all of that. There's something we're not spending a lot of time on that we've got some early indicators might be more relevant, and that's around digital events. One of the things we're seeing a lot of heads of sales, a lot of heads of marketing talking about, getting used to, is the fact that the new norm is not going to be about online only, it's going to be about a mix. And so their teams need to be really good at attending, leveraging, and running virtual events. So we see these every day. Let's do a webinar, let's do a roundtable, let's do a quick get-together. We're hosting a lot of these. Much like we've equipped you to talk about and think about video in your outreach, if you have some spare time, some spare cycles to think about unique skills, something I'd encourage you to think about would be online events. So attending some to get an idea of how to work a room, how to get in touch with people. Thinking about maybe hosting some of your own meetups. We see people running get-togethers. We did cooking class with our team. But considering how to run some of those could be a very valuable skill. Because as companies get their heads wrapped around the idea of recovery, and now they're ramping on their teams, they're going to be thinking about how do we really succeed in this new economy, and they're going to be thinking about virtual events. And if this is something you're already aware of, you're already comfortable in, that sets you up very well for success. So I want to share that as something to consider. I'm by no means saying you need to go out and be an event production guru. That's not my intent. But being familiar with it, comfortable with it, knowing how to leverage it, attending a webinar and seeing the attendees and reaching out to them on LinkedIn, those kind of skills are going to be very useful and will pay dividends. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully the links that I've shared are interesting reading. And if this sparks any questions at all, let me know. Happy to address separately or in my next video. But I hope you're having a fantastic week. Have a great weekend. And of course, happy selling. Oh, I should have mentioned, last thoughts, we did share 2 videos last week. So small PS, you'll see the links. Let's put them up here. There and there, testimonial from Mark, as well as a video from Ezra. Would appreciate it if you took a couple of minutes to check out those videos, maybe give them a like or a share, because it helps share the story of our students and is very helpful for future recruits. So again, take care, happy weekend, and happy selling. Ciao.